welcome to the Future Thinkers podcast. I'm Mike Gilliland.
And I'm Yulia Ivanova. And this podcast is all about the future.
Hey guys, this is episode 35 of the Future Thinkers podcast. This is part 2 of our interview with Duncan Trussell.
If you want to listen to the first half of this conversation, go to futurethinkers.org/34. And if you want to get the links, mentions, all the books we talk about from this episode, go to futurethinkers.org/35. Today we're excited to announce our new sponsor, which is Eternity. Great name, by the way, spelled with an A-E, like A-E-T-E-R-N-I-T-Y. And what this is, it's a new blockchain platform. These guys are big on decentralization and empowering the individual, and they're attempting to do things better than previous blockchain platforms like Ethereum and Bitcoin, specifically around things like scalability and lightning fast transaction speed. So they already have a testnet up and the white paper on their website, and they're planning to launch a token sale in early March. They're also looking for developers. So if you're a blockchain developer or enthusiast, or if you're into decentralization, or even if you're just an entrepreneur looking for new opportunities, you can go to futurethinkers.org/eternity, spelled A-E-T-E-R-N-I-T-Y. So go check them out, subscribe to their mailing list, read their white paper, and watch out for their token sale in the next couple months. As always, before we get started, I want to say thank you to our recent patrons and donors, Eric, Per, Daniel, and Robert. You guys are awesome. Thank you for making this show possible. All right, let's get into this episode.
I think you can keep going in that direction too. You were talking about LSD, and you come back from a DMT trip and you're not so sure you're not living in a really convincing hologram.
Simulation.
The same thing that they say in Buddhism and Hinduism, Maya, illusion. You guys know that term, Maya?
Yeah.
You know, personified illusion. Like, it's like, not only is it a lie, but it's a living lie. Like, it's a lie that it's nature trying to deceive you. I love virtual reality, because when you pull your virtual reality goggles off and go from the VR universe to the real universe, and you're like, holy shit, man, my senses really can be completely tricked. There's a kind of spiritual corollary to that experience, which is that you can remove whatever the cognitive filters are that you wear. Well, it makes sense. You know, I guess I've heard from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense that any organism would only process the data necessary to survive. All the spectrum of the different types of light we can't see, the sounds we can't hear, the feelings that we can't feel, even though we're being buffeted by all of these phenomena that our sensory apparatus won't allow us to process. The reason that is because it has nothing to do with our basic survival needs. And to suddenly become aware of it is to reduce your chance of survival. You know, like when I take mushrooms, I've seen, or any psychedelic, and since I was a kid, I'll always see some version of elves. I'll see some kind of like, not like Christmas elves or whatever, but for example, on LSD, if I'm looking at concrete, not a small dose, like 100, 200 microgram dose of LSD, I'll see weird runic writing everywhere, and then also what appears to be some kind of elf-like archaic drawings of elves, or it's like, oh, they're basing those drawings on whatever this is. And they seem to be alive, but they seem to be existing on a different layer of the universe, and they seem to be aware of us to some degree, but somewhat unconcerned or annoyed sometimes, or ignoring, and they seem more like nature too. They seem wild. They seem feral, like not in a crazy way, like that dog's a mad dog, but in the sense of like indigenous and tribal. Those things are probably there. You know, that's the astral plane that you're seeing. But here's the thing. Maybe for whatever reason, we haven't been seeing those things because it doesn't help us survive. It just complicates the situation. You know, like dealing with getting up in the morning and going to use the bathroom and then getting some food, or whatever order you do that in, is only going to be complicated if on the way to the bathroom you're seeing like tribes of ancient hyperdimensional beings watching you from the walls.
Yeah. I love the idea of the simulation theory that we're all living inside a big virtual reality game because it makes everything more interesting. Like you said, concrete, or when I take mushrooms, the carpet. And I think that is sort of the base level nature of reality, is that the deeper you look into things, maybe the algorithm creates more complex solutions to your questions.
What do you think the algorithm is?
You know that game, No Man's Sky? They did that procedural generation world where you could explore 18 quintillion planets. You can go as deep as you want into it. I think that's all the algorithm is meant to do, is to be very convincing and to expand as our curiosity expands.
But the question is, who made the algorithm?
That's what the question I love too, because it implies there's meaning into the events of your life and that maybe you can uncover meaning. I sometimes walk around and pretend like there is meaning in everything. Someone trips on the street and I go, okay, what was the meaning of that person's tripping in front of me to my life?
Right.
It's just a game I play, but sometimes you can actually find little patterns in that and pull wisdom out of that. Yuvi and I were at a coffee shop a few weeks ago. Someone fell down the stairs. A few minutes later, someone dropped a coffee mug somewhere. And then a few minutes after that, someone dropped another thing. And I was like, okay, Yuvi, pull your computer in, just like protect your computer. And within minutes after that, someone spilled a full grande-sized cup of coffee on Yuvi's keyboard.
Whoa.
And I was like, okay, maybe that's a sign.
So look what you did. So not only did you like recognize a pattern, but you were able to prognosticate that something else was going to happen, and then it happened. So
yes,
your hypothesis was right. It's just it wasn't good enough to know where she should move her keyboard. It was, but you knew there should be some action because you were seeing a pattern that other people weren't seeing.
Yeah.
So after the guy spills the coffee all over the laptop, he offers to take us to an Apple repair store where we can get the computer looked at. So we travel there, and it's we're a bit nervous, and so is he, because he's afraid he might have to pay all this money to repair the laptop. So we get to the Apple repair store, and I'm trying to ease the tension as the computer's being taken apart and looked at. And so I ask him, well, what do you do? What are you up to in Istanbul? And it turns out he's this robotics engineering student, and he's in Istanbul at the moment to attend this Google conference for robotics. And so it's this big competition. They have like battle robots going against each other. So it seemed like a really interesting thing. So he actually invited us to the event. And I was thinking about, we were in Istanbul for a couple of weeks, just, waiting for my visa. And it would be nice to have some friends and meet some people involved in tech, maybe meet some investors. And since we're starting this incubator in Plovdiv, it would be a cool thing to meet people involved in robotics or AI or whatever. This impulse to ask him about his life or what he's up to in Istanbul, and the whole coffee spilling incident brought us onto this next step to meet someone involved in the robotics and tech scene. So it was pretty cool. It turned out the laptop was totally fine, no problems whatsoever. You've got a little bit of a sticky keyboard, but other than that, no problems.
So I've read about this. There's actually a form of, like a bibliomancy, where you open the Bible, or it will work with a dictionary, whatever. You have a question, open the Bible, open a dictionary, and whatever you point to, that's the message that you're supposed to get. So
yes.
I can't remember which book this was where I read this, but you formulate a question, put yourself in a magical state, which is what you're talking about. Seeing the patterns is like bringing yourself into a magical state, and then go to a cafe is actually what I read. Go to a place with a question in mind and sit and listen to the people, or watch the people, not as though they were individuals, but they were as though they were one organism.
Have you read Synchronicity by Kirby Surprise?
No, I have not.
I think they've got a story from that. You might really like that book, actually, but that they do the same. He says the same thing. Go to a market.
Maybe that was it. Maybe that's where I got it from, because it was like an essay somebody emailed me, so it could have easily been out of there for sure.
That book is so cool. I like playing around with it, and people get so skeptical and like turned off by this, but I think the more willing you are to just play with the idea, you don't have to attach yourself to it and actually believe any of it. But if you're just open to the idea of everything having meaning, every single event, every color, everything you look at, smell, taste, touch, hear, there's meaning in it, then you can pull information from that, and you can almost decide the meaning, but much of that information can start to become useful. And I've been playing with this concept for a couple of years now, and it's getting stronger where that coffee shop incident is like a normal occurrence now. Like, that's weird, man.
Have you read Robert Anton Wilson?
Not yet, no, but it's been recommended to us.
So there's this idea of this thing called the Chapel Paralus. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
So in magical practices, when you begin to get into it, someone you should definitely have on your podcast is
Jason Louv.
Yeah, exactly. He really understands this stuff, really, really understands it. So when I talk about it, it's like a murky memory, but I vaguely understand what they're talking about just from my own dabbling in magic. And so the Chapel Paralus is basically what happens is when you begin to realize exactly what you're talking about. And there's so many different ways to put it. We're living in the mind of God or something, or everything's information, and the information can be not only apprehended in ways that most people aren't apprehending it, but could also be manipulated in ways that most people aren't manipulating it. So you can begin to see new fields of data and then transform those fields of data using techniques that most people think are absolute bullshit. But you begin to witness actual profound changes in your own subjective universe from these techniques. And then your life starts jumping timelines, because whatever the timeline you were on prior to recognizing these data fields and manipulating them, and that's gone. You've basically killed yourself, because now you've jumped into a completely new version of reality where suddenly you're with a person that you would never have been with had you not shifted your thinking. And this will bring you into the presence of either really good people or very dangerous people, depending on what kind of magic you're practicing, because some people are really into power. I was at this Ram Dass retreat talking to someone who met Carlos Castaneda. You guys know Carlos Castaneda?
No.
The sorcerer. So it's a great book. He studied under I can't remember the name of the religion where they take peyote, but he studied under a sorcerer, and he learned a lot of magic, real magic, and he could, just like Crowley. And but some of the rituals are really awful, like sewing lizard eyes shut.
Jesus.
Yeah. Lots of, and I was talking to my friend like this, I never liked those. Once I got to that part in the books, I just stopped reading it, because it's like, I cannot respect anyone that would do something like that. That's so fucked up. Meanwhile, I'm a super hypocrite because I eat meat. Different podcast. But the point is, this guy and my friend, I said to him, what? That's so fucked up. Like that. Where's compassion there? And my friend said, he's not into compassion. The sorcerers are into power. They actually see compassion as a kind of low-level form of power. But it's not the power. It's kind of like grade school stuff. Compassion, sure. Yeah, okay. To fucking cultivate your compassion, whatever. You go ahead and do that. I'm traveling into the astral realm. I'm making people do things and they don't realize it. I'm making shit tons of money for myself and for my friends using magic. And I don't care about your compassion. Should I get you a blanket and maybe we go to India and you find a nice hill to sit on with your blanket, Gandhi? Really? That's what you want, compassion? So you run into those people and they're real. And then you can get into the Chapel Paralus, where suddenly you get sucked deeper and deeper and deeper into ever-increasing realizations of the complexity of the astral realm. You can get lost in the astral realm. And then you can basically go nuts. Which is why you hear this again and again and again when it comes to magic. Be very careful. Be careful. When you read in these books, from the greatest magicians, all of them have like some pretty intense warnings in there about how to protect yourself, how to purify yourself. In my younger days, I would read that shit and be like, whatever. That's a bunch of movie bullshit. I could sit in my room and do a ritual where I try to make some connection with some Enochian entities. And I don't really need to go through the several days of preparation that they recommend. I don't really need to wear the clothes they recommend or do the particular drawings the right way that you put on your wall or burn the right kind of incense. I don't really need to do that because this is actually a bunch of bullshit. It can't really be real. And then you sit down and start doing it. And then the next thing you know, you've opened yourself up to something that you had no idea what it was. It's like ordering plutonium through the mail and throwing away the manual. It's like, hey, when you're handling this plutonium, you should definitely be wearing you should be behind several shields of lead, But no, whatever, fuck that. That's some bullshit scientist nonsense, So that's the Chapel Paralus. You can get pulled into a thing that is really fun at first, but can become it's like, how much do you want the universe to wink at you? How much do you want the universe to say hello? I'm not going to keep going on this rant, but, I had a friend recently who had a rather profound psychedelic experience that was not pleasant at all. And he was running through the experience with me. And in the beginning, he said, I ate the mushrooms, and then I invited the universe to come and tell me what the universe needed to tell me. And then he went to like a bar or something. And I'm like, wait, you invited the universe to come and talk to you at a bar? You invoked the universe, or your understanding of the universe. Eating these psilocybin, you had an intention of connecting to the intelligence of the universe, and for it to tell you something. And then you go to a bar. I didn't say it like that necessarily. I was trying to be very compassionate, but I've done the same thing. And it's like, guess what? Sometimes the universe answers your invitation. And when the universe comes to you, look at the universal form, chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's chapter 7, where Krishna reveals himself to Arjuna. And Arjuna is describing Krishna. The saints throughout the universe are bowing down to you, like praying, an infinite number of arms and eyes and mouths, and the light emanating from you is brighter than 1 billion suns, and I see all humans being devoured in your mouth. And this is the Oppenheimer quote: "Behold, I have become death, destroyer of worlds." At the very end of that chapter, Arjuna says to Krishna, I'm definitely going to abbreviate what he says, but the essence of it is, could you please go back to normal four-armed Krishna, please?
Normal four-armed cool. Krishna?
It's like he's staring at the spinach in his teeth, but it's all the bodies of all the people that have ever lived.
Exactly. Oh. And so it's like, I can read that in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's cool, and it helps me understand the vastness of the cosmology in what we call Hinduism. But in real life, are you ready for that? Are you ready to see that and to really see it? Not just to think, man, can I really manipulate reality using my mind? Or is it possible that we exist on multiple timelines? Is it possible that we are existing in a multiverse and I can jump into different multiverses just through intention, moving closer and closer and closer to my divine self? Is it possible that my divine, super evolved, actualized self existing at some point in some future in some multiverse can send signals back to me that I can follow in the direction of that thing? Is it possible that at some point in some future, in some multiverse, there is some awakened version of me that is the awakened version of all people that is calling out through all multiverses to bring those who can hear closer to it? And we call that thing God, when actually the closer you get to the thing, the more you turn into it, because it's that powerful. And if that is possible, are you ready for that? Your ego will be like, fuck yeah, I'm ready. That sounds awesome.
Or it'll be like horrified.
Or horrified. And the horrified is better. And because the verse is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I think there's something to be said for that. Or if you want to put it in a sweeter way, if you read the Chronicles of Narnia, did you guys ever read those?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the C.S. Lewis made this Jesus metaphor or Jesus analogy for a lion. And this lion, Aslan, is this wonderful being that is kind of like the avatar that comes to balance things out. It appears in all mythologies. But one of the characters in the book, when referring to Aslan, this Christ symbol, says, he is not a tame lion. And in the same way, this thing that we are contacting in different ways through psychedelics or prayer, meditation, or spiritual practice, it's not tame. It's not safe in the way that we think things are safe. It kills every second. It devours itself, and it has zero problem wiping out your identity in this particular incarnation. It doesn't care. It doesn't care. If you walk off a cliff, it doesn't save you. It's like, oh yeah, do that experiment. Let's try that again. Walking off the cliff. Oh, didn't work again.
Yeah, try again, new body, pop, there you go.
Yeah, so that's the Chapel Paralus, and this is why I love the teachings that Ram Dass gives, because it's like, rather than being the complicated rituals of Aleister Crowley, the lesser keys of Solomon and all the grimoires and all the different magical systems, which are so beautiful, but I'm just not wise enough for that. I'm not smart enough for that. I'm not disciplined enough for that. There's no fucking way I can do that. And if I do it, I inevitably fuck myself up, which is why I really love this concept of love everyone and tell the truth. Come into the present moment and just be here with the intention of loving, or work on yourself so you can help the people around you. That's where I'm at right now. By the way, I hope I didn't do some like old man warning secretly to you guys, like, don't do magic, it's bad, you'll go crazy. I didn't mean it like that. It's so fun. I'm just not good at it. It's so fun. It's such a weird thing to say. And yeah, that's great. As long as you're getting pulled into the right group, just and not getting like drawn in by people who have gotten really good at drawing in energy. Some people are really good at drawing in energy, whether it's like good luck or money or success or other people, and they don't even know why they're doing it. They haven't established their intention with themselves, or their intention is subconscious. They're not nefarious. They just are doing it, out of a kind of accidentally. They haven't identified, like, why can't I do this? Why am I having this experience? Or who am I serving? And if you can identify who you're serving, what you're serving, the algorithm, if you want to call it that, whatever it may be, and you can begin to like connect with that and allow that thing to be the setter of your intentions, then everything will be great. Because then you just become a vehicle of the thing, or an appendage of the thing.
The concept of karma in this case is really useful for me, because if you think about what kind of karma are you accumulating by doing this or that? I mean, how much suffering are you going to cause yourself in the future if you do these things? Because, in this life, you might cause yourself a little bit of suffering, but, over time, you're going to cause your future selves a lot more suffering.
Yeah, that's right. I played this on my podcast. It's from Ram Dass, and he was sitting with, I can't remember, these names are so difficult, but he's sitting with this teacher. He was telling him the story of getting really angry. And the teacher said, don't worry, Ram Dass, that's just your karma running off. Like when you get angry, when you start freaking out, that's old karma reaching some, and the karma might be 10 seconds old. It might be 2 years old. It might be a lifetime, whatever it is. Another way I've heard it described, which is a lot easier for me to understand, is it's like a fish swimming in circles in a fishbowl running into its own poop, basically. So that's what karma is, where you're like, oh yeah, look, now I get to be around this shitty thing that I created some time ago. Oh, hi, look, you grew up fast. Wow, you were just a tiny little bit of bad luck. Now you're a big, big, big boy. You grew fast. Well, instead of letting you trigger the seizure of habituation that has defined my entire life up until this point, maybe this time I won't react in the way I did before. And then you can start cleaning it up a little bit, for sure. But yeah, thinking about what the karmic implications of your actions is definitely a great thing to do, especially when it comes to magic. And it's because it's like, if let's imagine you did discover that, as we've talked about earlier, the universe is actively attempting to keep people asleep for whatever reason. Not even like some cobble of bankers, but some fundamental aspect of the universe is hypnotic and attempts to keep people in a state of never-ending habituation so that they never really wake up to their true identities or whatever. Well, if that's the case, then you certainly do have a lot of power over people if you're even slightly awake. I mean, just literally waking up in a room full of sleeping people, the kind of power you have over them is so extreme.
All the dicks you could draw on their faces.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or even worse, God forbid Bill Cosby should wake up in a room full of sleeping people. A dream for him, a true dream. But God forbid that should happen. And so in the same way, if you begin to wake up to some of these things and you're weak and you don't have great intentions, you just want to be surrounded by, and you see this all the time. Like anytime you see someone who's like got an entourage, you're witnessing a magician. They might not know that's what they are, but you're witnessing a magician that surrounded themselves with human energy in this kind of like vortex that they're floating around them in the form of like all their weird sycophantic friends. So it's like whenever you run into a person who's got a swarm of people around them, that's a magician. And the magician has used that magician's power to enslave or to magnetize certain people around them, which is why when you run into a celebrity, big celebrities inevitably have these entourages. And the entourages, it's so funny because the members of the entourage have personality characteristics identical to the sorcerer that they've been enslaved by, because the sorcerer's power is so intense that it actually is causing the identity of the people they've brought into their gravity to transform into their own identity. And so it's so cool to see. I mean, it's awesome to see a Nosferatu. This is a really obscure thing, but not a Nosferatu, a Renfeld, the vampire slave. Like, I can remember being at the Comedy Store. It's this comedy club. There's this comedian who's kind of obscure but kind of famous in the world of comedy. He wrote for Richard Pryor. His name's Paul Mooney. And he is really funny, but kind of one of these terrifying humans who have no filter. So getting around a person like that, if you're leaking some bullshit, they'll just tell you, and maybe something you've been trying to deny, and they'll just say it to your face, forcing you to deal with it. Ultimately good, in the moment very painful. But so there was a guy who was like basically a servant of the family that runs the Comedy Store, who any powerful family will have like servants or people who are like beholden to them, who are kind of in a not so symbiotic way, draining their power, maybe getting some bad energy back. But this famous fucking, guy who's famous for his role with this like kind of comedy dynasty was in the parking lot. And Paul Mooney just looks over at him and goes, "Oh, look at you. You're a Renfeld. You know that, don't you? You're a vampire slave." It was so wild. And you see the guy's face like, "Whoa, no," because it was true. And but yeah, that happens. So waking up is a lot of responsibility goes into that, because if you're going to wake up and use that, get a bunch of sleepwalking people to start following you around, then you're fucked up. The people surrounding you should all be a satsang of people who are trying to wake themselves up and each other up. It shouldn't be you and then a bunch of zombies that you've tricked into thinking you're famous or whatever, which is an arbitrary and absolutely ridiculous concept. Be careful. Be careful. Don't, if you're going to fucking do it, just do it so that we can all wake up and we can or you can begin the ripples that are going to hopefully create a global civilization.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. We were making a mind map of kind of our goals and then breaking it down into kind of human level goals and, the things in our lives that we should be doing. Not to get into too much detail, because I don't think you should reveal those kinds of private goals. But
right.
One of the things is that we wanted to help people wake up. Going back to the beginning of this conversation, and there's just, the information is out there. People just aren't looking at it. So even on that basic human level, just getting people to be more aware and look at reality without this kind of blurry filter that they normally have.
Yes. and to show them the highest technology, because the highest technology is not computers. The highest technology is love. That is the highest tech. That is always cutting edge. It will never stop being cutting edge. It is the most cutting edge technology on planet Earth. And to cultivate that and to get around people and love them, not try to change them, but to love them where they're at. Good luck. But if you could do that, and there are people who have done that with me, there's people who have cultivated that energy, that's where the transformation happens. That's where the waking up happens. Does the waking up happen by like showing people, hey, look, like we were talking about earlier, look at this fucking ISIS video. Wake up! No. That's not going to wake people up. That's going to make people want to go back to sleep if they were awake. Made me want to, fuck this, man. I just don't want to ever look at anything again that has to do with the news. But if you come to someone that you don't know and you've cultivated your abilities. So Neem Karoli Baba, Ram Dass's guru, was telepathic. There's countless stories of him reading people's minds, as it's called, or seeing into what they are. And telling them things that they've never told anyone. So he had cultivated over the many years prior to him becoming this awakened being. He was a sadhu, a wandering ascetic, but he also had a family, but he was also like, very few people knew who he was. His name, Neem Karoli Baba. Neem Karoli was a train station. They used to call him the Train Baba because he was on a train. Now, again, these stories, I blur them up, but he was like sitting on a train and he didn't have a ticket, and they made him get off the train. He got off the train and the train wouldn't go. And then they invited him back on the train and it went. And so no one really knows his story necessarily, but you can be certain, and this is what's really interesting about him and all the other, teachers, is they all, and Crowley and Liber 4 talks about this in the introduction. Definitely get Liber 4. Do you guys have a copy of Liber 4?
No.
No.
Okay, get a copy of that. Liber 4. In the introduction to that, Crowley talks about the way that people will disappear for a while. Muhammad goes into the cave. Jesus, like, we don't know the first 30 years of his life. Buddha goes into the forest. All the stories share that same component of going somewhere, kind of vanishing from the world for a little while. So you can kind of speculate on what they were doing during that time period. And probably they were doing what you guys are doing right now. They were beginning to expand their consciousness, and they were beginning to figure out how to do some of the tricks that we have heard great sorcerers are capable of doing. So Neem Karoli Baba had definitely achieved some state of being able to look into a person fully and see all the stuff in there. So the next thing he did, now, if you could just do that, and there's many people who can do that, if you could just do that, you would be a great salesperson. You would be able to sell a lot of fucking mattresses, cars, nuclear weapons. You would be able to really make a lot of money in the world by reading people completely, seeing what they are. You could really fuck with people if that was the only thing that you could do. But what he added to it, and what the awakened beings seem to do along with this ability, is they look into that part of the person that the person doesn't want to show anyone, and they love it.
Yes.
And they don't love it ambiguously. They love it completely. They love it with everything inside of them. Personally, they love it. Not like, oh, I just love everything, but I see into you. I see that thing that you did that hurt that person so much, and you hurt them, and you feel so horrible about that, but I love you still. I love the person you were when you did that. I love the person you were before you did that, and I love you now completely. And it's not phony, it's real. If you could do those two things, if you could master those two powers, then every single human that you got around would at least temporarily wake up. They would wake up and they would feel what is real, the only thing that's real, which is love. So those are the two. If I could choose any two magical powers, those would be the two that I would want to be able to have. And the third would be invisibility.
Well, the thing about love that you're talking about, that is the method of enlightenment through the Indian tradition. The guru loves the student completely with all of their flaws and all of their horrible thoughts and things that they've done. And through that love, the student is able to awaken. That is exactly the technology.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you walk down the street and you just think hateful shit about people, like, oh, that guy looks stupid or whatever, you know?
Oh my God, man. I'm so bad at that shit. Do you guys play World of Warcraft?
No, play Minecraft.
Okay, well that's cooler. But World of Warcraft is a pretty awesome game, and it's an online role-playing game, and like people are divided up between Alliance and Horde. It's ridiculous. But I met someone who was like an Alliance player, and like this is how bad it is for me. I heard that, and I'm like, in the back of my head for a second, I'm like, what a dick. Why would you do that? Why would you play Alliance? You know what I mean? Like, this is terrible. This is the uncultivated mind. This is what happens if you let your mind run around without teaching it or training it at all. You will definitely think things like that. You'll walk down the street and the mind of judgment will do that. But then the other thing they say is, well, yeah, the other reason you're doing that is because you don't love yourself, really. You haven't done. First, you start with yourself, right? Turn that view upon yourself. See if you can love yourself. See if you can love yourself, not in like that way of like you read an inspirational literature or whatever. Stand in front of the mirror and say, I love you. You're wonderful. You're worthy. You deserve love. You deserve peace. No, really love yourself. Can you do it? Why not? Once you start trying to love yourself and you realize you can't do it, then that creates a series of inquiries. The first being, why can't I love myself? And then whatever the answer to that question is, that will lead you in the direction of where you need to go. And then theoretically, after you achieved some state of really loving yourself through the practice, all theory for me, friends, theoretically, you would kind of instinctually do that around people who you ran into on the street. I guess I will not say it's theoretical, only because I've interviewed some people who have had a lifetime practice, and that's what they do. I've seen it firsthand. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I think you have to accept yourself first before you can love yourself. And that requires looking into your deepest, darkest shit in your mind and digging it up and looking it square in the face and accepting it. That, yes, this is part of the human experience. These are the things that I've thought, or these are the things that I've done, and I accept them. I haven't done that many horrible things to, have to face that kind of stuff. But in the last month, I've discovered just all the stuff that was stuck in my unconscious that I wasn't dealing with. And until I was able to look at it and deal with it, I wasn't able to love myself.
It's crazy, right? That stuff that you just forget about. I was floating I had a float tank at my house once, and I would go into it all the time. I was floating in it, and all of a sudden I would start having these vivid memories of things I completely forgot. And I can remember the feeling is you're being shown this, not like you're like summoning it. It's showing you this. But like I can remember seeing like even when I was like 11 or 13 or just a young kid, I had this vivid recollection of me being a bully to someone, and like completely had forgotten it, but there it was. Like it never went anywhere. Like it happened yesterday. Oh God, isn't that scary? Every moment of bluntness, every moment of mild rudeness, every moment this is actually something someone told me who works at a hospice and who has died, had the like experience of going to some place where beings told him, no, you don't get to die yet. You got to go back and work. You're not off work yet. That's the funny thing about death experiences is when people talk about it, a lot of them are like, I didn't want to come back. They make you come back here. Like in the way, like you're a kid who didn't get a hall pass and went to use the bathroom. They're like, no. You go back into the classroom. You didn't learn yet. So in that same way, he said that the experience of dying, when they talk about the life review, is not that you see it like you're watching a movie, but you experience it again with the addition of that you feel what you made all the people around you feel.
Yes.
Oh, God, that sucks, man. That sucks. Because I've been doing comedy for like 17 years, and definitely the first 10 years had to suck. So I'm going to go through like at least 10 years of like feeling a bored audience.
Yeah, the more people you get in front of, don't become a celebrity early. You're fucked.
But you know what? Maybe if at the time of death you've achieved this thing that you're talking about, self-acceptance and some subsequent self-love, then when all of that runs through you, you can love it just like you were loving yourself when you were in the human incarnation. That's maybe why the practice is so important. So that when that life review comes, because you know what? Maybe the person who does the life review, the judger, they always talk about the guy at the gates of heaven or the entity that determines where you go. Maybe that's the crazy thing, is that it's just yourself.
Yes.
Who decides by gazing upon what you did. You know what? We didn't pass. You're the professor and the student. It's like you didn't pass the class this time. Let's do it again. Let's keep doing it till we pass. Let's keep doing it. I don't know. Let's hope that's what it is and not some oblivion, even though oblivion could be cool too. You guys, I got to move. It's 11:30. I got to get back to work here. I've got so much to do today.
No worries, man. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us.
God, I love it. You guys are awesome. It's so fun talking to you. I don't want it to end.
Well, let's do it again.
Let's do it again. For sure, let's do it again. This is a great, cool, you guys are awesome.
Yeah, this is so much fun. Okay, bye.
All right, everyone. That's it for episode 35 with Duncan Trussell. We're super excited to have him on the show, and we had a lot of fun. Do expect him to join us again in the future, because I think we're going to have lots to talk about.
To get all the links, mentions, and notes, all the books we mentioned in this episode, go to futurethinkers.org/35. Also, don't forget to check out Eternity, the new blockchain platform, by going to futurethinkers.org/eternity. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!
Bye!